Okay, what's up? We are going to do the end of year video, and this is a little late, but it still is exactly what it's supposed to be. At the end of each year here on this channel for a while now, I've been going over what changed or how the room is, how the collection is doing, and things of that nature. So let's review the channel, let's talk about some stuff, and let's get some conversation about last year. Let's talk about 2022 and how it pertained to the channel, to me, to how things are going, and so on and so forth. Let's do that. Okay, here we are. This is it. Let's do it. We'll go all the way back on the channel. Here it is. This was the year-end review for 2021. This is the year-end review for 2022. And this is how the year started out. I'd become pretty much a 100% dedicated in-dive fandom channel. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I've done it for so long that it just seems to make sense. We did things like we did the best games ever. If I'm not mistaken, the idea was I responded to IGN's best games ever, like the best games that they've ever done, and talked about how I felt about their list. I checked out cosplay. I looked at things like these angry ladies breaking Xboxes and whatnot. I commented on random memes that led me into full conversations. I talked about why I wasn't currently playing Arceus, like what it was that took me out of it. I talked about all kinds of stuff. That was actually a good one right there, is Do We Though? It was 10 things we ignore about anime fans according to CBR, and then I went in and talked about it and was like, do we really ignore those things? Some of these things we embrace, some of these things we very actively know about. I talked about like the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. I looked at the Obi-Wan trailers. I looked at the Star Trek Strange New World trailer, which, holy crap. And then, this is where the channel had a big turnaround this year. 9 months ago, I decided to start diving into my collection. It only made sense, okay? It made all of the sense, in fact. See, I like to talk fandom. I like to talk about things like Dragon Ball Z. I like to talk about things like Star Trek. I like to talk about things like Star Wars and all kinds of different things. And I don't like to necessarily be locked down to one idea. And that is where fandom started taking over my channel. But I noticed that for the longest time, I could not get any views. And not really. Consistently, I've always been a very, very low view channel. And for what it's worth, there's been a fair amount of reason to that. When I do gain followers, I tend to lose them quickly. And the reason is because, one, the channel is incredibly random, or has been for the longest time, and didn't have a focus that would allow me to be random necessarily. Two, I kept running into a situation where I would do like 3-4 videos, and then I'd kind of run out of things to say, or I would start focusing on something else, and I'd drop off, and that's what would happen. But over the last couple years, it has become more and more difficult to get everybody together to do Fandom Night. And trying to keep Fandom Night running alone, and everything that goes into it, is just so draining. It is. Guys, if you're from Fandom Night, if you're from that group and you're coming over here and you're checking out my stuff and you come across this video, it's going to sound somewhat negative, but realistically, Fandom Night is a lot of work between a lot of people with a lot of adult lives and a lot of different things going on. And in order to make it work, in order to make it consistently work all the time, it was necessary to get everybody together and then say, what are we going to do? We're going to do these topics. We're going to talk about this. We're going to do this. And when you have only one or two driving forces that are like making actual decisions, and everybody else is just kind of be like, I just want this. Like, I just want to come over and talk about stuff. Well, that's great, but then some people don't like to do the Discord. And then sometimes they do like to do the Discord, but or rather they're indifferent about the Discord, and then they, like, our equipment costs money, and it just, there's a million different reasons why Fandom Night has been stressing me out to no end. And oftentimes what I do is I leave my channel, I go fix Fandom Night, I put all my energy into that, and I, for lack of better, I'm not trying to be negative, but I break my ass for that channel. And yeah, it has about 3,000 3,000 subs. So I mean, it is the better channel, but it stresses me out in a way that is hard to explain, trying to maintain schedules, get everybody over here, make sure the equipment works, and then find all the folders and get everything ready and prep the episodes. And it drains me in a way that's hard to explain. And there's very little help to be able to contradict that. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you why oftentimes I will disappear from this channel, go over there and work on that channel. And then by the time I'm done kind of getting that channel up and running and it's got a pace and I feel like it's right and I feel like everybody's happy and we're back in a spot where we're doing positive episodes and everything just feels right? Once I get to that spot, I then try to come back here and I can't do it because I've already spent so much energy on that. And then sometimes I was coming across topics here that I felt I wanted to talk about, but I would say, but it would be great if I could get the whole group to talk about it. So then I'll try to take the idea over to Fandom Night. We try to make it work, and then it doesn't work on Fandom Night, and then the episode never gets made here. So this year, about 9 months ago, I made a decision. I made a decision that to spare myself, Fandom Night was going to have to sink or swim. And I was going to have to maintain a more positive outlook with a lot less stress. And one of the things that do that for me is my pastime. The thing I do more than anything, realistically, is that stuff back there. I do. As opposed to everybody else in the group, I collect. I collect things, I sell things, I buy, I sell, I trade constantly. I sell things at shows, I sell things to other shops around the area, I collect comic books, I read comic books, I collect toys. I don't necessarily play with toys, but I like to set them up, and even lately, I've been doing these joke videos that have brought me a lot of joy, and I had to do this. I had to do it. Without going into detail, I had some stuff happen last year, that really changed my outlook on the stress levels I was putting on myself. And I said, if I'm going to do this, it has to work for me. It has to be things I care about, and my stuff has to come first. And the group is either going to have to step up and make Fandom Night work, or it's going to have to die. And I had no choice but to make this determination. I had no choice but to really look it in the face and say, if I don't do something for my own personal mood, my own personal health, my own personal stuff, I'm going to drown. I have to constantly watch my diet. I have to keep my exercise up. I'm fighting diabetes type 2. A lot of stuff was dropped on me, and then I started having some health problems within my family that were absolutely tearing on my psyche in ways that I was not ready to deal with at the time. So, and we never are. We never are. There's no way around that. That's just the truth. When stuff like this happened to Scott, he fell apart. He got mean. I'm surprised he's in Fandom Night to begin with today, because he got mean, he got distant, and we got mad. And the only thing that really saved him during that point was for me to say, look, we have to give him leeway. His mom died. I mean, you get the idea. Like, there's real life stuff that happens to us. And it was here that I made the decision that if this show was going to work, if my show was going to work, and I was going to stay on YouTube, I had to enjoy it. And it turned out to be a turning point, not just for me, but for the channel at large. Because here, I feel 9 months ago, this channel took off. And it started with this one video right here. The Donatello video. I bought a statue of Donatello. And it was just so good, I was like, I want to talk about it. I want to show it off. I want to show it from different angles and really get into it. I see toy reviews and stuff all the time. They're big. I'll do one. I did it. And then right after that, I went back to kind of what I was doing. I said, I'm gonna do like a fandom video. Hey, why do people hate something so much but then continue to watch it? And then I was like, oh man, I went out looking at one of the toy shows and I found this really cool set of Star Trek stuff. And I'd never been into them before. They were dolls, essentially. Action figures, if you're whatever. You can argue whatever. To me, they're full soft goods-esque doll, more like Barbies and stuff like that. You can argue they're action figures if it makes you feel more secure about yourself or whatever. Or if because they don't have hair play or whatever, then they don't count. It's whatever debate you want it to be. But this is how I viewed them. But I thought they were cool. I liked the face sculpts. I liked the bodies in general. I thought the soft goods thing was something that I never really had on my shelf. They were large. And for the first time ever, and their price point helped, I was interested. I said, it would be cool to get like the entire original cast in these figures. And so I got some. And I did a video on it, and I talked about them. And then I came back and followed that video up with another video talking about how when I opened them, because a lot of people were very concerned I was opening them. They were like, you shouldn't open your figures, blah, blah, blah. Because, of course, you know, the age-old argument, open, don't open. You can look at the back there, and you knew I was going to open my stuff. You knew. Look. Really? I'm an opener. And so then I had to do another video talking about how, come to find out, they were already open when I opened them. And then we went from there, we started talking about action figures and are they more for kids right now or are they more for adults right now? Really, who is the main people buying action figures in general? And then, of course, we did some Final Fantasy talks, but then we went back to toys again. We talked about old Spock. And then I revealed something that had been going on for about 3 months. For 3 months, I'd been collecting something in somewhat secret and not talking about it. It was something that I wanted to collect for a very long time. It was something I wanted to watch for a very long time. It was something I wanted to be a part of for a very, very long time. And I'm not exaggerating when I say very long time, but I wanted it. I started collecting He-Man, Masters of the Universe. And I did that video right there, that video right up there. It explains exactly how long I've been into this property, how much I've been interested in it, how much it's meant to me over the years, or this kind of material, how I seen it, why it appeals to me, and why at this current point in time, I need something positive. And so falling back into something that I've liked a lot and always been interested in, and then finding out just how big it was, that was it. I set up a Masters of the Universe corner, and I just kind of went to town at that point. I decided that this is where I was going to lay my foundation for the things that I wanted to do, the things I needed to do right now. I talked about Spider-Man, because that was one of the coolest Spider-Man figures I'd come across in a long time. I unboxed He-Man. I unboxed a retro Battle Cat, and then more retro play. It's very much the Origins Battle Cat, and I talked about why that was cool and why it appeals to me and like how cool that is. And every now and then I was slipping in other videos, but from here I really started toy focusing. I got Skeletor. And then I did things like, because I was just kind of getting into He-Man and kind of watching into that, I decided to go in and kind of look at all the transformations. I decided to talk about the show and like kind of how I seen it and how I seen Revelation at the current point in time as I was watching it and everything like that. I went back and I covered a couple of things that I missed with Fandom Night and went right back into toys. Mostly, Motu took my time with toys this year. But I did go to Warp Drive Toy Fair. I covered that, and I continued to unbox He-Man stuff and then look at other stuff too. I did collection pickups where I picked up Star Trek stuff and Motu stuff. I checked out things like the Power Ranger weapons. I talked about things like Diablo, the Immortal game, and why I wasn't interested in it. I discussed little things in my collection like how I was going to start prepping to do toy shows. I found old parts of toys that I was under the impression I would never find. I also talked about things like where my gunpla was and things like that, and like the shelves in general, as I started discussing how I was going to pull everything off the shelves. And this started a big thing at this point, which took about 6 months to do. Because then I started covering news and whatnot. Kind of like things I saw coming out that I was interested in, and Mondo figures that I knew I wouldn't be able to buy myself but were still very interesting. And I talked about things like, because I was just really starting to get into the stuff where I'm ordering figures and they come in the mail. I started talking about problems that I had with that. I talked about Dumbface Skeletor and how much joy that toy for some reason brought into my life at a weird random time, and how much fun I've had just having him around. And now I'm literally building an entire comedy series around him, which we'll start posting here on YouTube in small bits as I get things done and whatnot. I talked about the Viking Skeletor and Viking He-Man and Barbarian Skeletor, which I thought was so good that for the first time in collections, this is not a thing that I have ever really done, I double dipped. I bought them both twice because I wanted to display them both because I thought they were that cool. I talked about Superpowers and how Superman was one of my first figures ever in Superpowers and how important he was to me and how it broke my heart when he broke. I talked about the comic shelf and talked about things that had to go, and then kind of reverted back a little bit into being a fandom show because that's primarily what I've done for so long. And as I was kind of rooting through stuff and going through the collection, I came across a couple Princess Peach collection figures. And I knew they're amiibos. And I knew that when I got to the Nintendo shelf and started saying, I'm definitely going to be keeping Princess Peach, I knew that a question was going to come up, why? And so I decided I would do an entire video as to why I ever started using Princess Peach in video games, and why I still do to this day, and why I tend to enjoy Princess Peach in general. And it's just like a weird thing that I have where I like people to be comfortable when they come over to my house. I've often been the kind of person that hosts. So like when you come over to play fighting games, I don't like to pick the characters that you like, because then I feel like I'm taking your enjoyment. I feel like I'm taking away from the characters that you're going to play. And so I got myself into this weird mentality where other people picked Yoshi when they raced. Other people picked Luigi when they raced and things like that. And so I kept finding myself losing the character that I was using until I made a discovery that because 90% of my friends are guys, nobody was picking Peach. So I picked her, and I learned how to race with her, and then I kept picking her in every game after that, and even to the point where that's who I play in the Mario soccer game, because nobody's going to pick her, at least not within my friend group until very recently when that started happening. But now I've kind of got myself out of that mindset where it doesn't hurt my friends coming over for me to play the characters I want to play. You get the idea. But for a while, it was really ingrained that I was taking somebody's character away. That would take their enjoyment away. They wouldn't have any fun. They wouldn't come back over. It was just a weird anxiety-esque thing, which I normally deal with very well. But every now and then I get caught in my own head, and that's what led to me doing that. And I got a whole episode out of that. This was good, this Superman one. And I don't know why I went back and decided to talk about it, but I just had a random hit one night where I was like, Superman is Clark Kent and nobody can tell. And it's always this big joke, why can't you tell? And then one day I was watching Popcorn in bed, and she was watching Superman, and she got the asking, how come nobody can tell? He looks the same, he's the same guy, how come nobody can tell? And it hit me, all of a sudden why nobody can tell. And so I did an entire video on where my mind was and where my consideration was, because it just kind of hit me overnight. There is a reason in my train of thought why you wouldn't notice it. And evidently the video did very well. And at that point, I really could have dug into that kind of stuff and just went crazy and done a bunch of gimmick videos and got the view count, but it's not what I'm after. I'm after very much having this channel mean something to me, and it be important to me, and it be my escape. And as I've done that, I think it has helped the channel, but I bet you I could be at a lot more views if I dove in. I just don't want to do that. I unlocked that Beastman, or unboxed that Beastman. I love him. He's on the shelf. He's fantastic. I still think he is absolutely awesome. I love Red Beastman. I talked about, I went through things like old collection boxes that hadn't been unboxed. Steve Martin retired, and I decided to say something. Don't expect that. I very rarely actually talk about celebrities. It doesn't hit this channel very often. I looked at toys that interest me that I don't have, almost like starting a window shopping segment where I talked about things like Blazing Phoenix Chun-Li. That looks fantastic. That's a Ranger I would add to the Ranger shelf. In fact, I found out lately that aside from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, most of the Rangers that interest me are fantasy-esque Rangers that didn't exist, like the Ranger Slayer and that. And now there's a Kami one coming out soon, and there's a cool Ryu Ranger, and those are the ones that interest me the most. So if I add to that part of the collection, it's definitely going to be those kinds of things. I talked about Motu and the current state of fandom in general, and how I've had to kind of pull myself away, and falling into Motu was a big deal, which really helped me escape the toxic fandom that's out there. That video might even be labeled incorrectly, to be fair, because that's not fair. That's not what that's about. It's not why Motu, the current state of toxic fandom. In fact, the reason I moved that title further down is because my idea was to say fandom, the big giantness of fandom, can be very toxic, and finding the Motu community has really helped me this year, because there's an awful lot of positivity. Yes, people get mad, people complain about figures and things like that. You're always going to come across that. But I found more positivity in toys and Motu in general than any other fandom I have ever been a part of. Ever. Like, legitimately, ever. And so I wanted to talk about it. So I do an entire video about that. I talked about made to order and how I feel like that's very important for things like Motu moving forward. I tried to explain my review style, because people were talking about, oh, well, you talk an awful lot during your videos. And I'm like, these aren't just reviews. They're first impression, full conversations, more like a podcast, and tried to explain how I go into that thing. I talked about don't pay scalpers for Grizzlor, that just buy him and wait. I have one. He's coming. He'll be here sometime this year. I'm more than willing to wait on something than ever pay scalper prices. I talked about how some deals are not for me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We continue to sort shelves. I covered the entire Nintendo Direct, which was fine, but really, I think my time here discussing video games as a video game channel has really run its course. I think I will come back every now and then and talk about things like my video game collection, maybe things like that mean more on a collection scale, because that's really where I find my enjoyment right now, but we'll see how that goes. I talked about why the KFC Optimus post was getting so much crap, and why it's so demeaning to a fandom to hear you try to act like it means something to you when you're really just after a couple clicks and some money. I talked about the first He-Man figures that I ever wanted that I'd passed on years ago because of a gatekeeper, and how I finally decided one night at a comic book store to buy them just to put them on the shelf to say, to right a wrong of the past, kind of being bullied out of something that I evidently I enjoy very much and would have enjoyed years ago had I not been gatekept the way that I was. I wrote a small segment of my own kind of version of Motu to show just how malleable looking at a figure can be. I literally took Wondar, bought one, it's on the way sometime this year, and after I got him, he'll be coming soon. But after I got him, I got on and talked about how the fact that I bought one, and if I was to write for it, this is how I would do it. I covered Tila and how she did not have the gold, and then followed that up with a video, which was responding to a comment that I got on there where somebody said, "You keep complaining about the gold and how it's yellow, and it's not gold, but you were going to buy it no matter what, so shut the up." And I'm like, not really. No. This is important. It is important that the things that they advertise be what actually gets sold, because in the long run, one of the things I actually wanted was that gold, and it wasn't there. Did I hate it? No. But I did feel slightly cheated, and there is some legit kickback to that. There is some legitimacy to feeling that way. I showed off things like the Dragon Dagger. I bought an original Castle Grayskull for $40, and we checked out, like, did I get ripped off? Is it cool? How much of it was actually there? Things like that. And then they announced the Ultimate Battleground Eternia playset. And I got on, and I was like, this is amazing. Do I want it? Yeah. Can I justify it? I really don't know. And then we left that subject. I was under the impression that I was not going to do it. I went off to talk about character design for Tila. We opened a Krillin. We reviewed shelves. So we went over the entire anime shelf. We went over Star Trek shelves. We went over the gaming shelf. We went over Wonder Woman and the comic books. And then I came back. And after making some collection decisions, I sold $400 worth of my collection. Some big items, stuff that I'm never going to get back. Stuff that, in all honesty, I don't want back. But big stuff that was like things that were big parts. Like literally one of my statues was $180 Spider-Gwen that I didn't like the way she was. I kept the Spider-Gwens that I like. They're still on the shelf. But the one, she was built in a way that didn't make me enjoy the figure. I really didn't like it to begin with. I kind of bought it because it was rare. And then I ended up being like, why am I holding on to it? And it was part of this whole thing that I've been doing where I'm tearing down the shelves and saying, this stuff means something to me. And if it means something to me, then it belongs here. And if it has no reason, if it has no bearing whatsoever to me, then it needs to go. Why is it here? And so I followed that advice that I've been laying down all year, and I got rid of it. And with all that extra money, I funded Eternia. We got Modi this year, and I'm really excited about that. I talked about toy swapping and why it irritates me. I bought some G.I. Joe classifieds. I talked about how we weren't going to make the final tier. It wasn't going to happen. I covered my 5 favorite Motu characters so far. I did some toy hunts and actually did some full toy hunts and went to QuadCon and recorded those and kind of just took you guys with me on those things. I opened She-Ra's. I got all kinds of stuff. Jason David Frank died. This was one of the few moments where I decided that a celebrity, I would talk about it. I thought that it was important to say something about it. And I knew that trying to get all the guys together and to get them on Discord and things like that just wasn't going to happen. It was going to be a big nightmare. And so I tried one night to kind of talk to everybody and see where everybody was sitting. And it was a nightmare. It just turned into a big blast where everybody was like mad at each other about not being able to set up times and how, oh, well, you're just going to have to miss out on the episode. No, I can't, blah, 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 and this and that. And so finally I just decided, do it myself. And I came in and I talked about his passing, and then I did a full top 5 JDF items in the collection and like talked about him and stuff like that. We bought, I got Kamo Khan when he came out. I talked about more upcoming toys. We sorted the gaming shelf. We set up the Power Rangers shelf. We added Kamo Khan to the shelf when he got here. We got the Sky Sled. And then this thing happened, this Kidults thing, which is basically the PC version of saying man-child. I'm not really down with the Kidults thing. I don't think that whatever. But we open the Wind Raider, there's a lot of figures left to open. I bought a lot of Masterverse stuff over the course of the year that never got open because I'm doing it one episode at a time, a little bit at a time, and it's cool to kind of have these figures that sit around and wait to be opened because I've got them. And then I can come in here when I really need like a boost. I need to feel a little better. I need to kind of escape my day, and I can open a figure and whatnot, and that's been really helpful to me. So I don't mind that I'm so far behind, and I'm not trying to be like right on the cusp, like right here. This is a new figure that came out yesterday, and I got one. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about covering collecting as I do it. And the channel has done very well this year. We are nearing 600. And at the beginning of the year, this is a slow climb for most people on YouTube. But personally, since I've done everything I wanted to do this year, and it's all been positive, I haven't really been a negative channel all year round. And that's difficult to do if you're on YouTube, by the way. And yet, maintaining positivity and being very interested in collecting and only covering the things I wanted to do and having nothing but fun this year, I went from about 230 to 579. And personally, that is a fantastic climb. And I feel like if I keep going the way we're going to hit the 1,000. And that would be an absolute thrill to hit it on my own personal channel because, like, it would, especially since I didn't have to cater to anything else to get there. I just followed the videos I wanted to make and stayed true to the content that I felt I wanted to do, and that's shocking. So let's switch over to the camera and go around the room. Okay, so we're on the camera now, so let's go around the room a little bit. Let's talk about some stuff here and there, stuff that's changed. A lot of this stuff stayed the same this year. I haven't made major changes to stuff like that. This went up this year, which is a kind of like a corner to the Motu stuff and whatnot, which is really cool. In here, in the cubby hole where a lot of the comics and whatnot are, that's where I've been keeping the 2 Gray Skulls and the Dumbface Skeletor and my rotator and whatnot for stuff like that, which has been really helpful in some of the toy reviews and stuff like that. The Motu collection exploded pretty well this year, and that's because it's so affordable compared to so much other stuff right now that exists. And so here's like a Skeletor shelf. I know it's dark in there and everything there. It's a little bit better. And I got a He-Man shelf down here where he's just kind of, this is going to be a lot of He-Man stuff and whatnot. That stuff is random. It's mostly stuff that hasn't really necessarily been unpacked or anything. And that's some of the Barbarian comics and things that still need to kind of be moved. And I'm currently reading Nightfall. There's a figure that still needs to be, unboxed, along with other figures that still need to be unboxed up there, and a figure or 2 over here, which I still haven't got to. There's stuff down here, which a lot of that stuff is going to go downstairs here soon. The comics are still across the bottom. There's all the mic cords and stuff like that. That's going to go downstairs, actually. It's not due to stay here. But the shelves are 100% complete. So let's start up here real quick. Now I have all my Motu Masterverse stuff sitting up here because I just think that looks so cool. I really love this artwork on this. And then next to that are the models that still need to be made. Down below that, I have a Pokemon shelf where some of the Pokemon stuff sits. And so far, it's been pretty cool. It's a good shelf in general. There's still some guys that I really want on there that would mean something to me. Here's, we covered these guys, the Hasbro Ghostbusters. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. That Star Wars stuff right there, it's coming down. It's not staying up here. It's not even staying on the random shelf. It's going to go down into the garage and kind of build a Star Wars area for them because I don't have a lot of it, but it really takes up spaces from stuff that I care to stock up here right now. And I talked all about that in like how I talked about it during one of the Star Wars videos where I talked about how I'm so tired of the state of Star Wars fandom and how it's kind of chased me out, and I feel almost ashamed to be a fan right now. And it's just an anxiety thing that I don't care to deal with right now. There's the Joe Classified stuff that I picked up this year that's all pretty solid. There's Vampire D sitting back there, some more Ghostbusters. My anime shelf is Dragon Ball Z and a couple of One Piece figures, and that's it. That's it. I do like a lot of anime, but a lot of the anime that I like is like Gundam and like Blue Gender and stuff that doesn't really have figures. Here's my Marvel stuff. And some of this is questionable as to whether or not it's going to fully stay, but it's up here and it's cool. Move down a little bit more here. This is the Gundam shelf, all put together. The most recent build on the Gundam shelf was this guy right back here. This Federation Zaku right back here. He was the most recent build on the Gundam shelf, and then before him, my most recent build was Hondo right back there, which he's really cool too. That is probably my favorite HG build of anything, and I have one that I'm really looking forward to making soon that's kind of a different version of him. I finally have the Star Trek shelf all set up 100%, which is really cool. There's those big figures I was talking about back there. I need to still order a Spock and have him come in, and he's not that expensive. He's only about $12, $13. That's an original Playmate Enterprise, so that's cool, and it still works. It's all white and everything, and it still works. So that's awesome. A lot of the original cast and whatnot sits around there, including an Edith Keeler back there. I would like to get the entire bridge crew, and I saw like a thing that I can get, like a cool old pack that has the entire bridge crew, and I might invest in that later on. Here, of course, because you knew this was coming, here's the Motu shelf, okay? And it's just, this is the Motu Origin shelf, and it just blew up. It blew up this year, and you've seen my entire dive talking about it and why it's been so important and why it's been so cool and how much fun I've had with it. And then, of course, here's my DC shelf, which is primarily Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. That's the way it is. Wonder Woman being what is the most on the shelf. And then some of these things are still really, really, really cool. Like that's a Lego Batman 66 Batmobile. That's pretty cool. There's the Superpower Superman and things like that. A lot of this stuff is really cool. There's my favorite Batgirl. And it's just really awesome in general. Coming down here, we got Rangers and whatnot. So there's the Green Ranger helmet, bunch of the Mighty Morphin guys and stuff like that. Bunch of JDF stuff here. Go over here to some cleaning solution because I haven't moved it yet. Godzilla, which is cool. And then the gaming shelf, which that entire gaming shelf I'm thinking is going to be gutted. I don't think it's going to stay. I think the entire thing is actually going to be moved out of here, and I have a classic gaming area that I'm setting up in the garage, where since my classic gaming consoles are going to go down there, and most of what I have is pretty much classic gaming. It's original Lara Croft, as you can see her back there, right there. So it's original Lara Croft. It's Ayane from more older material. It's, Gray Fox. It's Zelda, it's Goombas, it's Mario. It all makes sense that I could actually build this up in that area, and it would just make so much sense. And then, of course, a couple of items that are left to open are, I have the Masterverse New Eternia Beastman, which there's one that's already open. He's up there. And then I got the other one so I could revert him into classic. And then, of course, I have another figure, which is everybody has been loving this guy. Everybody loves him. And I know why, because that is an absolutely fantastic figure. I can't wait to open him and talk about him and compare him to the original stuff. And then, of course, I have a huge Battle Cat right here, because the Masterverse Battle Cat is absolutely amazing. It's completely stellar. It's one of the coolest figures I've ever seen. I started doing this. I bought these little things right here, these like tackle-esque boxes to start storing extra heads and stuff like that. Figure it makes sense. It works. I likes it. And then if you go up here to the Pikachus and whatnot, you'll see the models that are next to be built. And that is one I'm really looking forward to. That Goof Crimson Custom. I'm really looking forward to that. Moon Gundam is something I'm really looking forward to. I actually have a Char Aznable Zaku 2 that I can make, that I can keep. And I have an original bridge that's going to be my first real dive into hard model stuff, because that is all white. I'm going to have to paint it. And I haven't painted something model-wise since I was like 14. So it's really going to be a challenge to undertake, but it should be cool. And that's it. That's the full year reviewed. That's everything that I could possibly have to say so far about last year. And it was a crazy year. It was a straight buggy eyes year. I had all kinds of personal things going on. I feel like I handled them as well as I could. I got a lot of stuff done. The channel's been doing great. The toy focus is exactly what I needed. And it has done wonders for my personal stuff and the channel at large, and has just been really blowing up. And I'm really enjoying doing it, and I'm gonna stay the course. At this point, there's no reason not to. I'm going to keep talking collecting. I'm going to keep collecting because it's what I've done for as many years as I can remember. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give me a chance. When I want to talk Star Trek and I have some Star Trek figures, that's what we'll do. When I want to talk about some superhero stuff, who's my favorite, why is he my favorite, this and that, blah, blah, blah. There's a million reasons inside of collecting toys in general and things of that nature that will give me the excuses to be a fandom channel. So that's not going to change. It's just taking a bit of a different dive into how I handle that kind of stuff. And if you have any kind of suggestions for toy videos or top 5 lists or things of that nature that you'd like me to go over, if you'd like me to go over 5 Batmans or all kinds of different things like that, or just whatever, say something. I'll take it into real consideration. I'll add it to my video list and things like that. But for right now, I think I've covered everything I need to cover for this year, and it's time to get busy opening stuff for 2023. And we'll see how this year treats us.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.